Hello and welcome back to another week of the DP World Tour picks and bets. Skylar Hoke joined here with Tom Jacobs, who is coming off another winner for us on the DP World Tour picks and bets show. Tom, great work, my friend. Billy Horschel every time at Wentworth.
Yeah, it feels like Death Taxes and Billy Horschel, right? It's strange because I felt fortunate with Tristan Lawrence probably should have won that, right? Like I think he should have won it. He should have birdied one of the last two par fives to win. Um, and Rory obviously had a chance to birdie one of them in regulation as well. But once it got to the playoff, you always feel like you've got a great chance with Horschel. They were sort of playing up on the commentary that Rory's shot was harder than Billy's, coming from the side of the green to the bunker in the first playoff hole. Rory makes it and Billy just steps up and hits the putt. But it almost felt inevitable as soon as Rory missed that eagle putt that Horschel was going to do it. And that's as much against Rory as it is for Billy at this point. And then it's just out of his hands, Rory. Like at this point, he's just losing. Like, and it's just not always his fault at this point. Like, he did everything. He hit the ball really well, Rory, down the stretch, and probably should have had one in the end. But Horschel just grinds it out. And look, on a President's Cup week, he's obviously going to make his feelings known. I would say on that, like they were sort of talking about how it was a noticeable admission, and he's only played one team event, right? It was at the President's Cup in 2022, like last time, I think, and he wasn't very good. I remember he lost the singles to KH Lee that week. I think he won one of his matches, lost the other in team play as well. So, look, if he didn't quite do enough to get on the team, there's always a kind of reason to leave him out at the moment. But if he keeps performing over here, we'll probably adopt him and give him a European passport and take him for the European team. But look, he's a fantastic winner. He's a good advocate for global golf, I think, Horschel, and glad to be on a win again for him there at the course. And yeah, once he got his chance, he seized it, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, it's tough because I think maybe Rory just draws the eyeballs of attention to think through. I mean, I ended up on a lot of Rory in DraftKings simply because I don't think the field played nearly enough of him. And what ended up happening is, I mean, I tracked almost every shot from Thursday on and countless easy mistakes from those
Yeah,
par fives all week long. It felt like that it's like, man, you should have won that event. Now, I didn't pay close attention to Billy on Thursday through Saturday. Same with, I mean, Manasaro probably should have won too.
yeah.
There's a lot going on that end too. So I think the eyeballs are clearly deserved and needed to be at a player caliber of his. But yeah, I mean, every little thing seems to not end up going his way, and that's what happens when you finish runner up as many times as he has. It'll flip. It will flip.
Yeah, it will do. And look, it's one of those things where every time we hear him speak, there's something missing from his game, and whether you believe that or not, whether you think it's a little bit more mental, regardless, like it's not going to take an awful lot for us to change those runner-up finishes into wins, and we could see a 3, 4, 5 win season next year. So, don't know if it's going to be one of those like multiple major years like we have with Xander, but I think he can get his major win next season and pick up a couple of regular wins. So as much as I give Rory McIlroy a hard time, it'd be good for him. All the time he's just focused on golf and not kind of being this kind of mouthpiece, I guess, either way. I really enjoy watching him play. So yeah, let's see him get a win. But this week we obviously get one of the other elites leading the field.
Yeah, I mean, basically after I guess we said it was controversy last week or in lead up, we pretty much get live slash DP World Tour combined events for the next two, right? We have this week, the Open de Espana, and then next week the Alfred Dunhill Links, which has a laundry list of live players. I guess pretty much Legion 13 are the ones showing up this week. But Club de Campo Villa, I believe, is the one that they played the last 3 years
Yeah.
that they've played here. Ram has absolutely dominated this course in history. Matthew Pavon was the winner last year here. Tom, initial thoughts into the course at all?
In terms of the golf course, I think it's pretty straightforward. I think as long as you drive the ball well, whether that's through accuracy or distance, you can get away with kind of both. The scores are out there. You're going to need to make eagles. You're going to have to make plenty of birdies to get around here. Scrambling looks pretty key from previous years, but I do think you just have to be an all round player, and that sounds really basic, but it is a shorter golf course. It's available to everybody to kind of play well, and it shows. Normally, the likes of Rahm and Pavon was in good form, and the one thing I'm really keen on, Sky, is that this kind of catapulted Pavon into a really good player this win, and I think there's a few candidates for that in terms of going from the DP World Tour to the PGA Tour and kind of finding quick success. So, maybe we'll talk about one or two of them here, but yeah, I don't think it's overcomplicated. I think it's pretty much, drive the ball well. If you've got added distance, then great. If you have to do it for accuracy, then that's fine as well. But just make sure you set yourself up for multiple, eagles and birdies on the par fives.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, from the odds board to the point, I mean, Rahm is plus 350 at the longest odds available. Tyrrell Hatton, his teammate, plus 850. Tom, if you ever hear me question or think or consider betting Tommy Fleetwood 12 to 1, let alone 8 to 1, make sure I take a lap. Okay. I mean, that was despicable. Friday, he was there, I think T7. I was like, okay, like Axis was giving me some love because I'm out here betting a favorite. He's like, what are you doing going on here? And then that happens over the weekend where he was non-existent. So, Tommy's of the three, those are the guys that are shorter. Now, Rahm withdrew from the weekend at Live from sickness. Legion 13, I think they maybe got knocked out in the semis or the quarters. Not 100% sure. But I mean, I guess if we say sub 20s, Tom, so that includes Lowry and Rye, was there anybody you double take that?
Lowry a little bit, after giving him kind of a hard time for being short on the odds board and not playing as well as I thought he could do. I thought it was another good performance from him last week, and he's kind of, just middling there, and I think eventually he's going to spike. But in the end, I thought it was a pretty easy pass at the top of the board. I know that sounds wild when you've got Jon Rahm there, but as you say, Fleetwood 8 to 1's never going to get my attention. Hatton, I think, is probably playing a lot better than people give him credit for, just because he's on that other tour. We don't really get to see him in the spotlight outside of the four majors. So, yeah, I think I would probably go with Lowry of the group. But hard to argue with what Aaron Rye's doing. Again, another person I gave a bit of a hard time last week in terms of price, but I could see why people would back him this week. I just won't. I think one of the shortest players I really did consider was Matt Wallace. Kind of spoke about him a little bit in DraftKings context last week and whether people would be comfortable going to him just after his win. But just retaining that form, Sky, he looks really solid. And as much as he's, proven himself across both tours now, I do think he'll want to get one of these wins where he comes and beats a Jon Rahm or Tommy Fleetwood, especially Jon Rahm in his own country, right? Like, I think that would be a massive win for Matt Wallace. So a statement win that could kind of put him on the forefront of the Ryder Cup team, I think, is huge for Matt Wallace. So there's definitely plenty of reason to, get back with him, because look, he beat Lee Westwood at the Maiden Denmark. It was probably his biggest scalp. I guess you look at Martin Keimer in Germany and Thorben Olsen that same week. But otherwise, they've been kind of players on the up as opposed to anything else. So I think he really needs to get that, okay, I've beaten Rahm, Fleetwood, Rye, Hatton, etc. So yeah, I think those would be my kind of thoughts at the top there.
Yeah, I mean, so this is my, I guess, overall thought process. I mean, we have multiple live guys, Rahm, Hatton, Reed, Puig, all playing. I think that's the main ones here. Chijara's playing too. But maybe we kind of saw Hatton at the British Masters. Like, there's really nothing that these guys are playing for, I mean, playing for outside of just making starts, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're playing to make starts for Ryder Cup eligibility is why Jon Rahm. I mean, representing the home country, but I don't know how sharp they are. I don't know how motivated they are. It's not to get into a major. I mean, obviously it counts towards it and everything, but I guess enough questions for me. Like, I don't doubt them at the majors. They're in their head preparing for those moments, it's just enough for me to question, especially at like plus 350, but just the numbers it provides to the rest of the guys down the odds board. I'm not really interested in any of the live guys here, maybe next week, but I have a laundry list of long shots I like this week, and kind of get back to a little bit what I like a lot more. So I didn't really consider anybody honestly short of 50.
I guess the one, how many majors is Hatton in for next year? And that's a general question I don't know the answer to. Like, if he's not in all of them, then I guess there's a bit more kind of motivation for him, because
he's still 38th in the world, so he'll probably be top 50 to close the year.
Is there not enough events that he drops down if he plays badly? Like, that's my only thought, is that he could be the one that, I don't know how quick. I mean, he went from 23rd at the Open to 36th at the British Masters after a good week. So the drop is quite quick for these guys on live. So he would be the only one that I think he's got to defend his world ranking. I don't profess to know enough about the world rankings. You're probably more sort of fine-tuned on that. But that would be the kind of case I'd make for him, is that he does need to do that. Plus, Rahm has always kind of turned up in Spain. So
for sure. Yes.
The only thing I don't know is whether he was really ill or just couldn't be bothered to play the team event. It's as simple as that. Like, they're not going to win, so does he want to play, or just chuck John Catlin out there and let him audition for next year? Or
I mean, that's a good head-to-head on the Live Tour. Catlin versus Rahm. Who do you want? I don't know.
John Catlin's on fire, right? So, that would be the kind of take at the top of the market here.
So yeah, I mean, so if I'm skipping and excluding, I mean, Matteo played awesome. His putter's still kind of the liability in some ways. I don't know. I mean, he did everything he could have done. I mean, Sunday just didn't go his way. I mean, he played awesome, still cashes. And his odds, honestly, he was that same number last week. Is that right? 28. Yeah. So kind of surprised he didn't get a shift down the board with no Rory and some of these big guys not playing. I don't know. I guess it's kind of basically similar to last week.
Yeah.
For field strength.
They've essentially subbed in Rory for Rahm here, haven't they? I think is the main thing, right? I mean, probably a little bit more depth because you had sort of Adam Scott and Horschel and people like that last week. But yeah, I do still think the value's there at 30-1 for Manacero, 28-1 generally. My concern is actually, you said about the possibility of a bit of a liability. Like, that's been what's sort of generated his last two performances, and if he's then not taking advantage of it when he's putting well, that's my concern. It's like, okay, well, his irons are probably going to turn up. His driver's okay, and also he's not long nor that accurate off the tee. So if there's a liability in his games off the tee, and I think he might get caught out here. So I didn't get to him. If he wins, then great. It's just a combination of some really strong form, and I'll just be happy for him either way. But I would probably rather just wait for the Dunhill Links next week, or an event further down the line. I think he could really win one of these kind of final events in Dubai and stuff. So happy to pass on him and go elsewhere.
Yeah. So you can lead us off with your first selection here.
Yeah. So Alex Fitzpatrick is 50-1 Sky, which I think is a bit of an overreaction. So, I mean, he was probably 40-1 last week. I think it's a bit of an overreaction to just missing the cut at Wentworth. He had 4 top 12 finishes going into the week. Did miss the cut, but it was just horrendous putting side. He was absolutely awful through the 2 rounds. His around the green wasn't good either. He still hit his irons really well. And I just thought, 50-1 about a player that finished 20th here last year on his debut. Better player now, in better form. I don't really see a weakness in Fitzpatrick's game at the moment. I think, it's funny because I've mentioned the last couple of shows like how far apart is the talent between him and his brother. And after making those comments a couple of times, a little bit flippantly, I've gone back and looked at like the early seasons of Matt Fitzpatrick, and there is still just a very wide, margin between the two of them. But I still think it's like underrated how good he is. And I think at 50-1 about a player that has, continuously played well, 4 top 12 finishes going into Wentworth, 1 miscut is going to change my mind too much. So, 50-1, I think he can win this tournament.
Yeah. I mean, I was on him last week. Disappointed to not see the kick forward at Wentworth at a big time event, but I'm in agreement of what he can do and what hopefully we will see to close out the year.
And he's one of those players, Scott, I mentioned that I think he could catapult himself into different levels. Like if he could follow the Matthew Pavon route, I think, in the sense that, do I think he's going to go win Torrey Pines? No, but I didn't think Pavon was going to go win Torrey Pines. So
right.
I think that he is the type of player that's definitely, more than, eligible for PGA Tour.
Yep, 100%. A line selection at 70s for us. One, if we're getting a little Spanish flavor, a little Spanish love in the home country, Adrian Otagi here at 70-1, sneaky top 20 last week. Honestly, kind of a sneaky top 20 at the Irish Open too, led by really good off the tee. I mean, he's very, very accurate. Irish Open, he popped with his irons. British Masters, he had popped with his irons. And then we just know him to be somebody who's now picked up a win every other season dating back to 2018, I believe it was. And I had written him up last week because of that incoming form a little bit. Now to get 70-1, I think we're pricing in a little bit more of the Spanish side of things, the course history, which is okay, but I'm willing to take that number onto somebody that I trust in contention.
Yeah, as you say, back-to-back top 18 finishes. And when you look at his record here, as you said, sort of middling, 17th and 28th here, but even on debut, he was 9th after first 6 holes and finished 61st. So I think that gets kind of overlooked a little bit. And I just think about that huge win at Valderrama for him, Sky. Like he won by 6 strokes that week. And since then, he's finished 28th in this and 9th at Valderrama again in his defence. So maybe just took a little bit of confidence, like, look, I can go and play at home and really turn up. And as I say, those 2 irons at the British Masters and the Irish Open really caught my eye. And yes, they weren't quite as good as last week, but the fact that he finished kind of top 20 without his best stuff is, I think testament to where he is at the moment in his game.
He's not far off from a PGA Tour card, 27th in the race to Dubai, a really good end of the season, and he's in the thick of it.
Yeah, and look, he's already a winner this season, 7th at the KLM, 4th in Kenya, 17th and 18th last 2 weeks. His putting's not good, is it? His putting's really bad, or at least it was going into a kind of run and miss cuts between the BMW and the Betfred. But yeah, I just think he's good value. I just think at home, if we're going to take someone on in the kind of home contingent, it should be him. So happy with that.
Imagine betting Campillo at like the RBC Heritage next year. Like that screams my betting card right there. That's it for sure. Man, I'm excited for this crew to get to the PGA Tour this year. It feels like a good mix that will get there. Okay, you're on somebody else at 70-1 who actually I would be excited on the PGA Tour too if we can get over the health concerns. Ewan Ferguson plays as good as anybody at 70-1 here.
Yeah, Ferguson is. Look, I sort of likened it to Jason Day with the. I think that's probably an easy comparison to make with the vertigo issues, right? But he was 9th here on debut last year. He got better as the week went on. He was 36th at the Irish Open recently, but he was 4th at the halfway mark, and he was 18th last week at Wentworth, where he's inside the top 5 for approach and 11th, I think it was, in tee to green. When you look, 9th at Mallorca, 9th here, 13th at Valderrama. Clearly likes playing in Spain. Even when he was 52nd at the Catalonia Championship, he was 12th going into Sunday. So he's not that far removed, Sky, for a win. He won the BMW International Open earlier this season. It is purely health dependent. I think as long as he's feeling healthy and not struggling with vertigo issues, then I think he can win pretty much any time he tees it up in the DP World Tour. He's got to that status already. We talked about the fact that he'd got those couple of wins, but really could have had probably 3 or 4 in that kind of really rich vein of form that he was in. He obviously got beat by Oliver Wilson, who held 2 monster putts to beat him there. I think it was in Denmark. So, I just think for a player that's won 3 times since the start of 2022, in good form again, the type of person that I think outside of the range of the real top players here can really vie with the contenders.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you at all. He's somebody that I really do think the ceiling is there, and we've seen it in big time the PGA Tour events he's played in and crossed over there. I'm now going, Tom. I got 7 selections that are triple digits and beyond here. I'm taking on the favorites. We're getting some top 5s, top 10s with a lot of these guys. And starting it off for me, without a doubt, I'm betting Dan Bradbury this week. So Bradbury for me, if we remember, I mean, that's probably, I think, the longest winner that I've hit on this show. I believe it was 300-1 at the Joburg Open when he made basically his DP World Tour debut. But previous to that, why he had really shown up on my list was after becoming a pro. He had played 5 events in 2022. His best finish was the 2022 Open de Espana at this course, where he finished T13th, relatively unknown to anybody. When we looked at that week, I mean, if we looked at the odds for him this week, he wasn't even listed on odds boards. That's how far off we were with Bradbury. And then he came out and had that win. And I mean, the years just really haven't gone as well as I would have anticipated for somebody to me who is potentially the best iron player on the entire European Tour. Last year he shows up and he finishes 6th, and that was basically when he was out of complete form. Bradbury then kicked on to close the year strong, but this was really out of nowhere for him, and I think he's starting to show that return a little bit, driving the ball incredibly well, even when missing cuts like at the Irish Open. His driver was as good as it's been all year long, and then he was 3rd off the tee last week in Wentworth, finished 35th, which for him that's a pretty good finish on the season. His irons were 3rd in round 4, I believe it was, and then so he just had one of the better ball striking rounds of the entire season for him to close out last week. So to get that at 100-1, I'm not passing.
Yeah, and I think it's important you mentioned it was that good final round with the irons, Sky, right? Like, because on days of golf, if you were just to look at him, like the last 4 events, he's been pretty disappointed with his irons, especially in the Irish Open. I think everyone will look at Dan Bradbury and just expect him to, hit the ball well and maybe not got the most out of his putter. And so when he hasn't done that over a course of a few weeks, I think that's enough to put people off. But again, as you said, the final round was really strong and he should take that into it. And we've seen it, numerous amounts of times with these types of courses, Sky. Once you get a liking for somewhere in Spain or, Germany or Italy or whatever, it seems to be quite repeatable. And as you said, 13th on debut, we didn't know too much about him. He had a 64 and a 65 that week. Comes back last year, 63, 66 over the weekend to finish 6th. Really encouraging. So he was one that was close for me. Didn't get there because of that initial sort of glance at his irons not being where I would want them to be for him. But good intel on the one strong final round, and that potentially is enough for me to kind of think about it myself as well.
Yeah, he's somebody. I still think almost the Ferguson-like type of ceiling that he possesses. That if he could match for a while could he match a putter to the way he was playing, which arguably is like never as well. But when he does, he contends. That's kind of what his equation is. And then I'm shocked at the odds for Matt Baldwin. Like I really am shocked that we can get him at 150-1 this week. I was kicking myself after round 1. He was somebody I wrote up at Established to Run last week in my value report. He's $6,300, paid off immensely with a T4 for him. This is what he's doing, Tom. He's hitting his irons amazing, and he is putting very, very well. He paired that with his best week off the tee in a good amount of time. I believe it's the second best of the entire season. 36-hole leader, right? 36-hole leader, played amazing. Even for him to finish 4th, like that was a really, really good week into the thick of it. Kind of been known as somebody who wasn't closing on the weekend until he had that runaway victory last year. Still think, he's got a lot in the tank, and at 30 or at 150s, like I'm willing to take that chance. Again, you're getting a good top 5 number, 25 to 35, depending where you shop, and a top 5 there too. If you get an each way, that each way is 37.5. So I'd like it a lot with Baldwin.
Yeah, I was like you. I was keen. I said we spoke on quite a decent amount at the 6,300 range, right? Like him and Pepperell, they both played pretty well. When you look, I think it was his first win. It was on the Challenge Tour. That was in Spain. He'd been second there as well on a Challenge Tour. So clearly likes this part of the world. And yeah, it's just whether you think he's going to carry it on. It's as simple as that. Like if you think he's going to carry on playing that way, he's going to hit one at some point. And when you look at how he played here last year, it's 71st in terms of finish position, but 67 in round 2, 68 in round 4. Encouraging signs for Baldwin. So I think he's certainly worthwhile at those long odds. I think it's just one of those ones where do you think he's going to win? Like he was in a really good position. I know it was a tough event. How many ahead? I think it was like 4 ahead at one point, right? At Wentworth last week. Yeah. But Manasero had a 3-shot lead and that evaporated pretty quickly on Sunday. And, Manasero is a top tier player. So I wouldn't put that against him. I would say the fact that he's got himself in that position to be that far ahead in a tournament of that caliber is something that we should really focus on as a positive as much as too much of a negative. It's hard to close out a 36-hole lead. And yeah, I think if we think he's going to carry on, then he's at least shown last year that he's had 2 good rounds here.
Yep. 100%. Okay. 250s. Before we get into the golfer that we're aligned on even deeper than this, I will start with Casey Jarvis. Casey Jarvis is somebody, at that same event that Bradbury won, Jarvis kind of took him to the wire a little bit and fell apart on the weekend, but he just hasn't I guess pretty much done it on the DP World Tour from what we expected. I mean, unbelievable amateur, did really well, Sunshine Tour, then Challenge Tour, 2 top 10s this season so far for him. Another three top 20s. So not what I'd expect out of him, but he first popped on the radar at the Barracuda for me when he kind of played well from a stroke play standpoint, making the cut 33rd. He's somebody who makes a ton of birdies like that, so I'm not surprised to see him also kind of running up in Stableford. But then Omega European Masters, top 10 for him, best he had been off the tee all season by a long shot. And then last week at the Irish Open were the best irons, or I guess 2 events ago, but last time he teed it up, best event he has had, where he finished T26 at Royal County Down. I get a little bit links question marks you might have that can carry over, but I still think so highly of him that, I mean, maybe if you feel more comfortable as a first round leader type of play, but 250s for the young stud Jarvis. From the contrary, I guess, do you have anything on Jarvis before I flip to the total opposite of him?
Yeah, I just don't know what Casey Jarvis is. I've played him a couple of times, and I thought more would come. He's 21 still, right? Like that's the main thing to really focus on, is that we're talking about 250 to 1 about a player that's 21 years old, and he's playing really good. So it's hard to be negative about him, especially when he's played so well with his irons at the Irish Open, played well at the Omega. So yeah, I completely see the idea behind it.
Opposite of that, we're going borderline challenge tour here with our next selection, and I cannot believe that Ryan Baroff did not tip our guy here. I mean, I thought for sure we're showing up Monday morning and Jimmy Walker is going to be on Baroff's betting card because of the last 4 rounds. I'm not going to deny it, Tom. I mean, it's not like he had been any good on the PGA Tour. He doesn't get starts. He just doesn't, regularly get into events. I think he played 5 or 6 this year, made 1 cut. And then he comes out in the Irish Open. I mean, just Sunday 65, I think was the round of the day, tied round of the day, to backdoor that top 10, really good irons, gained in all 4 categories, played very well, very strong golf. And I'm not saying I trust Jimmy Walker, this could be a anomaly. I would immediately expect being roasted on the selection when I post my betting card, but enough for me to go back to big techs. I think I have to at those odds.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is is it just a links fluke? We see a lot.
But was he ever good at links? No, right? It just, I mean, but was the week fluky as a whole?
Yeah, I think any veteran golfer that knows how to play in the wind can kind of show up in a links event. So that would be my opposition to it. I would love to see Jimmy Walker play well this week, and I don't see any reason why not take him a huge number. So, yeah, I'm not against it in any way, shape, or form.
So it kind of was a reminder to me, and I feel like, again, these kind of happen when these guys pop over, but Snedeker, if we use the case series of Snedeker, right? Snedeker was 12th at the Czech Masters. I believe he was top 10 after the first round, maybe even better than that, post round 1.
I think he was top 5, I think.
Snedeker. Yeah, I believe, yes, he was right in the mix after the first round. And then he came back to the PGA Tour, finished tied for 26th. His best finish, you could probably say, best finish on the PGA Tour since 2022. So does a 12th like that on the DP World Tour kickstart you to kind of get some feels back? And they're kind of in similar career paths at this point. So yep. I'm kind of going off of that type of vibe.
Yeah, look, I think one of the things it does talk about is that these guys are just better on the PGA Tour. It's as simple as that. Struggling on the PGA Tour is not the same as struggling on the DP World Tour. Even Mark Hubbard was playing well for the first round last week, and then he did just fall away. But that's out of nowhere. He's been really poor. So I do think there is certain levels to just dropping down to the PGA Tour, and that has to be considered. It just might be that Jimmy Walker might be too long in the tooth, but right. Who knows?
Okay, before we go into our line selections and get past 301, we will give a shout out to all of our audio listeners. You can find us on Daily Fantasy Sports, Picks and Bets, The Mix, available on all your podcast platforms. If you can give us love, YouTube comments are always great. We appreciate that. And Twitter love is awesome too. Have somebody actually on my betting card who we got a tip on Twitter last week. So excited for that. And it's just appreciative. I mean, this is a decent DP World Tour event. Next week is awesome. Everybody filled those contests last week well in advance. So if we get a spot later in the year that the PGA Tour is not playing, hopefully we can, kick the tires of DK again to get some bigger prize pools, because that was great to see the support. Tom, who are we on together at 300s?
Yes, it's Marcus Armitage, and there's two players on the DP World Tour who I think are fairly similar, and I'll group them together. It's Marcus Armitage and Andrew Johnston. And Andrew Johnston's an interesting case study this week. He's played.
I kind of thought about him too.
Yeah, like we obviously know, he's won at Valderrama. He plays well in Spain, so that was under consideration. But Armitage is a little bit more extreme. They both just kind of got this persona and profile of this kind of big, lovable joke type character, and I think that detracted them from actually settling down and being the real stars that they could be on the DP World Tour. And I think Armitage, just not quite as good as Johnson, couldn't rely on that level of form continuing. But you mentioned the Barracuda with one of your selections, and Armitage was 24th there, but he was actually 13th in stroke play. He's 5th in stroke play going into the final round. He finished 42nd in Denmark, either side of some missed cuts. But it's the last 2 weeks: 17th at the Irish Open, 4th after round 1, and then 10th last week at Wentworth, where he was 4th after round 1, and inside the top 15 all week, which I thought was really impressive. You then look at his debut here, and again, it wasn't great, but he had 3 sub-70 rounds, 69, 68, 71, 68. We know what Armitage is in terms of just like his skill set is to get hot with the irons, right? He's 6th and 12th the last 2 weeks in strokes gained approach, 23rd and 12th in tee to green. He's finished 21st at Valderrama, 6th at the Mallorca Open, where he's first round leader, and 3rd going into the final round, and 13th at Valderrama again. So he clearly liked playing in Spain. So I just thought that the price about Armitage at 300 to 1 for someone that's obviously hitting the ball well, obviously returning to form, and suits the event as a whole, a slightly shorter course, can get hot with the birdies as well. I think Armitage is plenty of value at 300 to 1.
Totally agree. I mean, all of these bets would have popped to me if they were 100 to 1. And the fact that we're getting that's what I've anticipated in a typical DP World Tour event, to have that. And if I'm okay chancing the favorites, getting the double the odds pretty much of what I would have anticipated, I am more than willing, especially the top 5, top 10s on some of these guys. Again, they're probably good shouts in first round leader markets too, depending on where Thursday weather of the draw ends up being. You could go that way too. For me, I'm closing out with 2 really long ones. One starting with the Twitter tip that we had gotten. Tom, you need to pull it up here. Believe the coach is Jim McLean, and who tweeted it at us? Nick did. Wicked Nick on Twitter. You can find him with kind of a shocked face, where Jim had tweeted a video of James Nicklaus just saying he came back home during the gap week on the DP World Tour for him, and he made 9 birdies and 1 eagle at Winged Foot. We know what Winged Foot is like. So to do this, Jim says, it's just absolutely insane. I get it. It's a practice round, probably not even like a 59. It's a practice round like 62, if he mixed in some bogeys there. But I've been riding James Nicklaus since he has shown what he can do in qualifying school, and I am not going to get unsolicited, tweet sent at me and then not respond with a 500 to 1 selection. I mean, he popped multiple times this year, right? Italian Open, he finished 5th there, where we cash in each way on him, and I believe that was off of a miscut. Yep. European Open, he topped 25. SEC Championship, that was a 12th for him too. He's had some first round leads, followed up by 80s in his history, 78, 67 to make a cut before this year. He is all over the place, but what he does well, he can drive the ball exceptionally well. He's not a bad putter when he gets it rolling, and we've seen different parts of his ball striking kind of contend. So All that being said, one tweet is I'm on James Nicklaus at 501.
He's one of those players that's really dangerous to follow on Instagram, because if
It's terrible.
you watch his videos, you'd think he was the best ball striker in the world. And I remember doing this when I went to Wentworth, and Gregory Bordy hit the ball really well on the driving range, and I would instantly bet him, and I think he finished like 37th or something. But like, every golfer looks like the best golfer in the world if you just look at them up close and don't see anybody else, right? But he does definitely have something about him, and off the tee, we keep mentioning is important here. He's one of the longer players on the DP World Tour on his day. And yeah, I think, look, if you're playing that well at winged foot, you can play well here. It's as simple as that. Yes, there's no pressure, but I don't know what pressure does he feel right now? Is he in any way, shape, or form going to keep his cards, Guy? Or is he free rolling at this point?
He needs to get into the top 120. He's at 149 right now.
So he is on that kind of where a big week would keep his card. So there is, I guess, that kind of pressure. But I don't know.
That doesn't mean he's going to get a lot of stars. He's probably going to have to go back to the final stage of Q School and try to better that. But
like,
he got a shot.
It's not his goal, right? Like, his goal is to play Corn Ferry and PGA Tour stuff. So I imagine if he gets in the qualifying school for the Corn Ferry, right? Like, I think he'll go for that. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't know what he is. Like, we know he can absolutely stripe it off the tee. He's just not very good with his irons, generally speaking.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Jones posts his strokes gained statistics from his practice round. So if James Nicklaus wants to do that, then I can get a better idea of his game at all times. That's my request to anybody that I follow who's a golfer on Instagram. Just give me a strokes gained recap of your rounds. We'll start writing these down, and we'll create a nice little database for us. Any long shots for you that you were intrigued at, Tom? Also that caught your eye? I've got one more to round out.
Yeah, there was a couple. I thought Jason Scrivener has had a couple of good efforts here, and we talked about him a few times recently. Garcia Heredia, 170 to 1, obviously nearly won when Matt Wallace won, and I believe he's got a pretty good record here, Sky. Yeah, 6th and 9th the last 2 years. So, a local player like that is also worth looking at. The second kind of came out of nowhere, and he missed the cut the following week when people were on, so I don't necessarily hold too much hope for him, but those are the couple that really caught the eye. I guess then you start getting into, like, our players just massive odds. I mean, you mentioned Sam Jones, 750 to 1. He's a player that can just go low on an easy golf course. Lucas Nemetz has had a couple of good rounds. He's 500 to 1. I could see something like that where he just goes and shoots a low one. What happens to Ross Fisher? I thought we were getting another little season out of him, and then he's disappeared again, 300. So, yeah, no one that was really too hot. I guess Pefferell played one again last week, and he's 5 to 1. So
maybe next week for Eddie if he links.
But then we thought that at the Irish Open, and he played really poorly, right? So
True.
And then I guess John Parry is one of the most consistent Challenge Tour players right now. Like 2 wins in his, whatever, last kind of 12 weeks and 3 more top 8. So, and I actually think he played here last year and played okay. 47th he was here last year. He was 7th going into the weekend. So John Parry, with the form he's in, is pretty worth a look. Yeah,
for sure. From an amateur side of things, I'll just hit on Ballester is here. Jose Luis, he won the US Am. He is teeing it up, and then I think it's Masaveu, Masaveu Luis. He played really well in that USAM too, just from a stroke play standpoint. I think he ended up losing in the semifinals that week. Marco Peng was somebody that I was interested in too. He's kind of hit the ball well off the tee, popped for a 12th at the Irish Open. He kind of was really close, but I mean, I'm cutting myself off at 8. But the one that I am wanting to bet is the same golfer who ripped my heart out earlier this season at the SDC Championship, and that's Jordan Gumberg. So Jordan Gumberg, 750 to 1. This year, he has 1 victory on the DP World Tour, and that is his only finish inside the top 40. He has 1 other finish this year on the DP World Tour inside the top 50, and that came last week at Wentworth. He finished T48. Nothing like really too special, 70, 72, 72, 69, nothing too bad for him. But he had been somebody who had been catching my eye, waiting for the time for a course where he could let loose with the driver. I think he's 14th so far in the season. When we looked at off the tee rankings, I mean, he's crushing the ball off the tee. He's quite accurate with it. He's backed it up with a couple weeks where he can be long with it too. But one of the better drivers. And then at Wentworth, he had his best irons of the entire season for him. So when you kind of have that combination of, to me, like a ball striking ceiling, you've won. And I mean, he's bounced around everywhere. Like he played the Challenge Tour. He had a T20 earlier this year. Last year, he was pretty darn good. Challenge Tour, 2 top 5s. Other than that, he's just never caught on with consistent status, basically all year, all career long. Even though he is a winner this year, he's only 71st. I believe he's going to need to get top 70 to get into one of those later events on the DP World Tour. So still something to play for, but I think 750s, there's a ceiling for him.
Yeah, I mean, look, it doesn't take a lot for these players at these odds to catch your eye. And as you said, best irons of the year last week, and the fact that he just made a cut is encouraging, right? And you just can't putt, and that's not a surprise, I guess, for these American players that didn't really plan to be over here. Like, I think that's James Nicklaus wouldn't have planned to play in Europe, whilst he's the type of person that's well open to doing it.
And I mean, top 10, top 20, still going to pay well. I mean, if you look up kind of those odds, let's see, a top 20 for Gumberg is, as of now, 11-1. You know, like that's kind of how I'm going to play it. I think I'm going to have a top 20 on those 2 long shots, top 10s on everybody up to kind of Otagi, and then really go from there from what we have. So that to me was kind of my way of attacking the week. So Tom, if you want to review your betting card, and we can close out.
Yeah, so for me, it's going to be Alex Fitzpatrick at 50-1. I've got Adrian Otegi with yourself at 70-1, Ewan Ferguson also at 70-1, and Marcus Armitage at 300-1 are the 4 that I'm going with this week.
All right, I will double that. Maybe it's because I had a light card last week. Laurie Cantor withdraws pre-lock, screwed me over in a lot of lineups. Should have read at the bottom of the Golf Digest article, mentioned that his wife was also due the weekend of Wentworth. That would have been very helpful to read, Skylar. So I'm going to make sure to keep up on that because nobody caught it. He was very owned. So I'm going to go away from the favorites, and we'll start Adrian Otegi, El Pirata, as he's known as, 70-1. Dan Bradbury, 100-1. Matthew Baldwin, 150. Casey Jarvis, 250. Jimmy Walker, 250. Marcus Armitage, the Bullet, 300. James Nicklaus, 500-1. And Jordan Gumberg, 750. Tom, you hit a winner at 22s. How about a 750 or maybe a combined 300-1 winner this week? That would go well.
Yeah, like I think Armitage is going to win, so like we might as well just go there, right? I mean, it splits the middle, and but look, I think we've had a really strong season in terms of just outright winners. I think the consistency week to week maybe is harder this year in terms of just like consistently getting places and things. I think like we've been really good, and sometimes we've had a couple of off weeks, but yeah, we on top of winning, we have had a couple of real close run things as well. As you said, Robin Williams at the SDC Championship there, and I think probably 2 or 3 others as well. So it's been a really strong week and a year, and I just want to finish it off with another couple of winners now before the end of the season.
Yep, 100%. Well, thank you all for listening. We appreciate you as always. Alfred Dunhill Links Championship next week will be awesome with a really strong field, and we will catch you for that next week. Thanks again, everybody.